Hello everyone and welcome to Student Finance for Mature Students. I am Dr. Charlotte Barrett and I am a UK Student Recruitment Officer at the University of Leicester, and I look after mature students and postgrads. So student finance is one of those subjects where it sounds complicated and actually it's not quite as complicated as you think it might be. So the big thing is how do I afford to go to university? And if you're coming back to education after a short break or a long break, or even just thinking, I never thought I would be here, but actually I do want to do it, and you think, how can I afford it? We're going to go through all the options. So I'm going to go through what support is available for you and the different sources of financial support available for you, what I like to call free money, so scholarships and bursaries, and we'll touch a little bit on how you apply for financial support as well. So how do you afford to go to university? I think the most common comment I get when I'm talking to people about potentially going back into education is, I can't afford that. And depending on your circumstances, it might be that actually you can afford that. And there are a lot of people out there who are maybe putting it off because they think actually this isn't something that financially is going to be viable. So hopefully this should show you exactly why it could be viable for you. So there are different funding pots available. Student Finance England do supply a lot of the finance for students. They do tuition fee loans, maintenance loans, and there is additional support. Quite often it's the additional support that people are not aware of. And universities also have money for, this is the free money, the bursaries and scholarships that they will give out to help support students. I'll give you a few tips as well on other sources of that support as well. So to start with, tuition fees are done automatically. So if you are eligible, and that means basically if you're doing your first degree, if you've never done one before, you will get your student finance for your fees. Sometimes if you're coming back into education and retraining, usually in things like allied health or some STEM subjects in certain circumstances, you can get a second student loan. But usually if it's your first one, you're definitely guaranteed that. It gets paid directly to your university and you are eligible for the length of your course plus 1 year. So if you take a year out, if you have to resit a year, you can actually get finance for resitting that year. So this is a good way of looking at it, is that you are going to get that plus a little bit of extra help. This gets paid directly to the university. You don't see it. It just comes to the university automatically and gets added on to your student loan pot. Then we have the maintenance loan. So your maintenance loan is your cost of living. This is money that's going to come to you. It's there to cover things like rent, mortgage, anything else that you might need to pay out during that time. And it doesn't matter what you use it for. We don't monitor that. Student finance don't monitor that. But it comes to you to help you with your day-to-day costs. Now, this one is based on household income. So it is means tested. On the next slide, I'll explain about independent students and your circumstances, but essentially the one thing to remember with this, that if you are supporting yourself, you are classed as an independent student, generally it's not going to include anything you're making as a student. So if you have a part-time job, or even if you have some income coming in from elsewhere, which is coming to you alone, then basically it won't include that. It will include your partner's income as a household income though, so I'll explain a bit further on there. Good news as well, if you're over 60, you do still qualify for student finance. You would still get your fees paid, and you'd get a maintenance loan of, at the moment, it's just under £4,000. The assumption here is that you'll be getting some sort of pension. So if you're between 60 and 65 and haven't quite got your pension, it does leave a little grey area, but generally there will be money coming in to help you out. So how do you know if you're an independent student? So generally, a mature student is classed as anybody that's over the age of 21. But if you are over 25, according to student finance, you are an independent student, so that you are responsible for yourself. But other circumstances can basically pop you into that independent student status. So if you have children, no living parents, been married or in a civil partnership, supported yourself for 3 years, or been estranged from your parents for any length of time, then basically you are an independent student. So what this means is that your household income is based on your income and your partner's income. if you have a partner, that is. If it's just yourself and say maybe you share a house, you have a lodger or just share a house with different people, it won't include their income. But if you are in a relationship with somebody, then it will. And I'm afraid it doesn't, they do include if you are living sort of as a civil partnership or sort of cohabiting. It does include that, I'm afraid. So it's not quite as clear cut as being married or not. So that is when you're classed as an independent student, and it's based on just your income or you and your partner. So the amount depends on how much you have coming into your household. Now, this is a rough idea of how much you might get. It's graded and it's based on your income. It doesn't go up in chunks of £5,000, I'm afraid, but there's an eligibility calculator online on the Student Finance website that will tell you exactly how much you might be eligible for. So you get paid as if you were living at home. So I've got your columns here. If you're living at home, if you live in your house and you're not going to move into student accommodation, you're classed as living at home. So if your household income is under £25,000 a year, you will get around £7,747. Now, these amounts are actually, they're yearly. They are for 2021 to 2022. And next year, they'll go up very slightly. Every year, this amount goes up with inflation. If you're going to go and live away and live in halls of residence and have two addresses, so if you're going to have a term time address and a holiday address, then you're classed as living away from home. So you get slightly more if you live away from home. I think the assumption is that you'll be paying more in rent if you move out of the family home. And if you go and live in London, living away from home, you get a bit extra again. And that's because it's quite expensive to live in London. So they've taken into account sort of their London weighting. Now, you'll get this payment in 3 chunks during the academic year, usually around September time when you first register with the university, in January, just after Christmas, when your first assessments come through, and then again in April. And so this is a yearly amount, but you get it broken down into 3. Now, I have put a monthly amount in there because most of us are quite used to paying all of our bills in a monthly chunk. So to give you a bit of an idea about how much it breaks down to monthly, basically, if you're budgeting, this is how it is going to come through. But it's going to come through in 3 chunks, not monthly. But it gives you an idea for comparison. So that's your maintenance loan. Again, that money obviously comes through to you into your bank account, and you can use it to spend on whatever you like. And then whatever you've borrowed will go onto your big pot to be paid back later. So there is additional financial support. It's not just that. A lot of younger students might just qualify for those 2 parts, tuition fee and maintenance loan, but there's actually more depending on your circumstances. So, for example, if you have children, you can get, if you have children or you care for a young person, you can get a parental learning allowance. Now, the parents' learning allowance, it doesn't affect any tax credits you might get. It's paid at the start of each term, so around the same time as your other maintenance loan, and it's on top of your student finance, so it won't impact anything else. Last year, it came to around £1,766 a year, and that's to make sure that obviously you can still feed your children or anybody you're looking after. We have the Childcare Grant as well. So the Childcare Grant actually works a little bit like childcare vouchers. If you are eligible, and the eligibility for this is being on a sort of quite a low income, if your household income is usually under around £14,000 a year, then you can qualify for this, and you can get up to 85% of your childcare costs covered. So it might be that you're a single parent family, and you need sort of childcare to help you out, or you've got very low income coming in, and this basically will help to cover those childcare costs, and it includes after school clubs. So with that, you can get a maximum of about £175 a week for one child, but it's up to 85%. And your childcare provider, if they're registered with Ofsted, can claim that directly from student finance. So again, you don't have to worry about it coming in and out of your bank account. It's there waiting for you to use it, and your childcare provider can just access that. So like I said, you might need to find a little bit to top up, but it covers everything from sort of like daily nursery costs to after school clubs. You've got the adult dependents grant as well. So if you do have an adult who's financially dependent on you, then you can get about £3,000 extra per year to help you out with those costs as well. So it might be that you are were the sole provider, and the other person in your house is dependent on you, and so they take into account that actually that person needs to eat and bills need to be paid, and actually they'll give you some extra money for that too. Now, disabled students allowance is one that actually a lot of people might qualify for, but don't realise that they qualify for it. If you have any long-term health condition, it is worth having a look at the disabled students allowance. And this can include mental health conditions as well. So if you're seeing the doctor for something ongoing, and it could be that it's manageable and on a day-to-day basis, you don't need much support, but actually it's worth having a look and seeing if the disabled students allowance is good for you. So this one isn't means tested, but it's tested by need, and there is a pot of money for each student who qualifies of up to £25,000 per year. Now, it could be that actually you just need a specialist laptop or a bit of equipment to help you out on a day-to-day basis, or it could be that you need a note taker, and that £25,000 could go towards employing somebody to support you while you're at university. Now, you do have to go through assessments on this, so make sure that you do tick that box early and give the university and Student Finance plenty of time to help you out. But it is worth looking at, and it covers things like dyslexia, dyspraxia, depression, or anything which might impede you getting on at university. So just think about that one as well, and do get in contact with your university of choice if you do qualify for this, because they can help you out too. And finally, if you're currently on universal credit, there is this special support loan. Now, this is designed to help support people who might qualify for things like the housing benefit element of universal credit or income-related employment and support allowance, and it tops up your student finance. So again, there's an understanding that not everyone's in the same circumstances, and they might need a little bit more to help them out and make sure that they can study without having to worry about it. So when you're filling in your student finance application online, this information, as you tick the boxes, they will ask the questions and see if you qualify for it. But don't feel like you shouldn't tick the boxes. Make sure that you are claiming as much as you can. And when I get onto repayments, it will make sense as to why. So here we go. What do I have to do when I pay it back? Now, I think this is the bit that people get most worried about. By the time you finish studying, it feels like you've got a huge amount of debt weighing down on you. And yes, the numbers are big, but the repayments are quite reasonable. So you don't start repaying your student finance until after you graduate or finish your course, and then you are only going to repay it back if you're earning over £27,295 per year. So if you're under that threshold, you don't have to worry about it. It's going to sit there, and it will accrue interest, but no one's going to chase you for it. This is, as a student, this debt is in your name, so it doesn't get passed on to anybody else. Outstanding payments get written off after 30 years or when you retire. If you don't repay back all of it, don't worry about it. There's not going to be a huge bill at the end saying sort of like, why haven't you paid this back? If you change jobs, go on maternity leave, long-term sick, anything like that, and your income drops down below £27,295, you're not going to be repaying that amount. Now, you're also only going to be repaying 9% of income over, anything over £27,295. And I've got a table which will show you about how much this is. The other good thing about this is that it doesn't count towards your credit rating, and it doesn't count towards sort of things like mortgages or loans you might want to take out in the future. Banks aren't going to look at how much you've got outstanding. They're going to look at how much you're repaying back each month. And as it's always going to be a manageable amount, it's not going to get in the way. So here's some examples of repayments. So of course, if you're earning under that threshold, you're not going to repay anything. If you're earning just over, say £30,000 a year, you might be paying back £20 a month. And it comes out at source. So if you're getting paid through PAYE, then you pay your tax, your national insurance, your pension, and your student finance. So you don't have to remember to pay it out. It's going to come out at source. And if you choose to go self-employed after you graduate and you are earning over the threshold, then you're going to pay it when you do your tax and national insurance on your self-assessment tax return. So it's a nice, simple system. Again, it's going to be there, but at the same time, it's going to come out and it's not going to be much. So if you're earning around £40,000 a year, you're getting quite a nice chunk into your bank account each month, and you're going to pay back about £95 a month. So as you can see, it's never going to be too much for you. And as it comes out at source, you don't have to worry about those repayments or it being too much at all. You're not even going to notice it's there. And I'd say don't worry about interest. There is interest, which is in line with the retail price index. But when it comes down to it, most people will only pay off a small amount of their student finance. So our example here has someone earning around £30,725 a year. At £450 a year, it's £37.50 a month. And over 30 years, that person's going to repay £13,500. So that's 1 year of fees and a little bit on top of that. Now, 77% of people at the moment aren't going to clear their debt, including interest, within that timescale, and it just gets written off. So you wouldn't be alone if you're thinking, oh, you know, maybe I'm the only person who's not going to repay it. It's fine. I always make a joke that the best time to take out student finance is at the age of 59. It's most likely by the time you retire, by the time you're finished, you're going to be retired and you never have to pay it back at all. Okay, moving on from student finance. So there are extras depending on what course you're doing as well. So the NHS, while the bursaries aren't in place anymore, have put in place some extra finance for their students. So this one is for students doing allied health professions. So it's not medicine, but it could be any course which is funded by the NHS, or you're going into an NHS career afterwards. So the ones I've highlighted here sort of in bold, they're courses that we do at the University of Leicester. So we've got midwifery, nursing, operating department practice, and physiotherapy. But other courses do qualify as well. So things like radiography, speech and language therapy. So these are all undergraduate courses. So they're 3 or 4 years and usually have practice and placements within the NHS all the way through it. So these are the eligible courses, and this is replacing that NHS bursary. So what they have put in place is the NHS Learning Support Fund. Now this goes on top of any student finance you qualify for. So it is an added bonus on this, and you can get around £5,000 per academic year as a training grant, just to start with. Now, as the courses are usually quite intensive, you usually either learning from sort of like 9 till 4 each day, or you're on placement on a sort of a full-time basis. There's not much time around your course to be able to go out and do extra work to help support yourself if you need that extra. So this is designed to basically make sure that you can concentrate on your course and you don't need to worry about what else is coming in. There's also additional parental support as well, and they have an expenses fund. So when you're on placements, if it does cost money to get there, so travel and possibly accommodation if you're working nights, they will reimburse that as well. There's also a hardship fund, the exceptional support fund, that you can access should something happen and you think, oh my goodness, I just don't have the money to cover that. And that could be your car breaking down, washing machine blowing up, anything like that, or just something that is unexpected. I will say as well, most universities have a hardship fund available to all students for that same aspect. So if you do find yourself a little stuck for cash for whatever reason, universities can also help you out and cover you in that short term. So the sort of when to apply for the NHS courses, if you're a new healthcare student, you can apply over the summer. It's paid in 3 instalments and usually about a month after your student finance. So it's November, March and July. It is a different application from student finance. So you do need to do 2 applications. For student finance, you will be applying sort of from February or March time of the year you start your course. So if you're looking at starting in September 2022, you're going to be applying in February or March of 2022. If you're doing NHS as well, that's going to start in the summer, so 1st of June. So around that time each year. And both applications are done online. And put your application in as early as possible. I think that's one of my big tips. So let's talk about some free money. So we talked about stuff that might need repaying. The NHS bursary, also the NHS maintenance doesn't need repaying either. But scholarships and bursaries are there for students, for us to sort of reward you, but also just help support you as you go through. So we get money from different places. So your universities get given money from alumni, donors, charities, and the government to help basically give it out to you so that we can share the wealth in that respect. So universities will have different ways they might share that out. So they might have different offerings. So do have a look at the university scholarship websites, because it might be that you're eligible for different amounts depending on where you go. The criteria can be quite different. And sometimes it might be that you've got to put in an application, and sometimes we can give it to you automatically. There's also independent scholarships. So I think the Scholarship Hub is a good place to start for that. Or there's also Turn to Us, which is a charities website, and they also have quite a lot of funding for students. Now, the independent scholarships on the Scholarship Hub do come in sort of all sorts of flavours and requirements, and people who put their scholarships through the Scholarship Hub are able to put whatever requirements onto those scholarships as they like. So for example, there is one which is the Vegetarian Charities Grant, and if you promise to be a vegetarian, they'll give you £500. So there we go. So things like that on there. So do have a look at the independent scholarships available too. I'll give you an idea of what we have at the University of Leicester. So this was this year's. Obviously, we don't have next year's scholarships ready yet. But essentially, we have the Centenary Scholarship, which basically gave £1,000 for students who've overcome adversity. We have the Citizens of Change 100 Scholarship, as we do have a centenary this year, which is £7,500 over your course. Both of those you need to apply for. So do check websites regularly and have a look and see what is on offer and whether you need to apply for it. But we've also got scholarships that we can apply automatically. So we will contact you when you start your course and tell you what you're eligible for. So things like the University of Leicester Scholarship is £1,000 per year if your household income is under £25,000 per year. And we can check that off your student finance application. And we have the Mature Student Scholarship, which is if you're over 21 at the beginning of your first degree, we'll give you £1,000. And again, we know that from your application. But we have music scholarships. So if you play at a certain level, you could apply to continue to do that and get some financial support. And we have sports scholarships for people, again, who compete at, say, county or higher level. We've had Olympians going out and about and getting sports scholarships from us as well. And again, it's about supporting that. So you might get your gym membership covered and extra money to help you keep training. So do have a look and see what each university has on offer. Make sure that there is actually a box on the student finance application that says share my information with the university, and this helps us give you the extra funding when we can, but we do contact you when you start to say you qualify for these. Sometimes we also have scholarships available if you've got particularly good grades at different levels, and it might be that we can offer you a bit extra. And these stack, so you don't have to pick one. You can take as many as you qualify for. So that is my quick guide to student finance. If you do have any further questions, you can contact me by email, which is cb297@le.ac.uk, or I'm on our UniBuddy pages as well. So if you pop onto our website, click on chat with us, and then find me on there, you can send me a message direct. Hopefully that's helped answer many of your questions about student finance.